Okay, hello guys. So the World Finals happened last night. SKT versus Samsung Gaming. Pretty good games. Was only a three-game series. I got to watch quite a bit of it, but I wanted to go ahead and share it with everybody. My immediate thoughts. Um, as I will be doing other VOD reviews of other Worlds games that have already passed, but I'm sure everybody's excited to watch this. Uh, and if they haven't really thought about it, then I'll go ahead and explain it. That is the best I can. So remember, this is patch 7.18, so it's very, very, very different than the meta right now. You see a Janna start, so this is a little bit simple. You get the Ardent Sensor buff, and you get the helpfulness in the team fights with her ultimate, Monsoon. An SK Telecom 1 opt for a Varus Gragas, and I actually thought this was really interesting the first time I saw it, because when I thought Varus, I thought mid game, and when I saw Gragas, I saw early game. So definitely like um, not an immediate. Well, it is an immediate difference to what SKT is normally putting off, where they want to get that scaling and they want to hit the late game. Um, Whereas they're going to put a lot of focus on Varus, who I don't really assume to be a primary carry, um, just because he's a lot different than, say, a hyper carry like Chaya. And Chaya was actually on the table, so it definitely throws me off that SKT go ahead and they pick Varus here. The Gragas pick isn't bad. I think this is before the nerf, so his E is actually much larger, and provides for a very annoying flashy combo. Um, as long as Peanut's able to put the pressure out. Samsung Galaxy just say okay. They grab Chaya, as she's probably the best ADC on the table, since Tristana's gone, and unless they plan on running Kog'Maw, there's nothing. There's nothing else that notable. Caitlyn would be viable. Ashe would be viable, but not going to fit the bill as they want. And Malzahar gets picked out. Malzahar is actually like the most interesting pick I thought of. I thought happened in this series, just because I know Crown's really comfortable on Malzahar, and SKT doesn't really give his Malzahar like any respect at all. As Malzahar is a champion that, like, when you're sitting in lane, he's really hard to aggress onto. Although he's not very good at being aggressive. He is very good in the mid game as well. So when you think Malzahar, you think mid game picks, um, and definitely picks like after the early game, because you're definitely level 6 or you're level 11. But before the late game, because at some point Malzahar, being although he has a lot of damage, um, his range can sometimes limit him against very strong picks for the late game. Um, SKT go ahead and they bring out Lulu, which is a really interesting pick, because it's going to form that anti-assassin um, playstyle, where either Varus is going to be living for a long time, or Faker will be living for a long time. So they can't really get one shot by the Malzahar. It just specifically denies that. Then they go ahead. They have an interesting ban phase. I know Kennen makes it through ban phase here, but J4 is taken out. That's pretty standard. Long range engage, lots of power. As for the other, the first bans, Callista is just heavily mobile. Tristan is heavily mobile, and she's extremely strong. Galio, I'd agree that in patch 7.18, Galio was ridiculous. Um, and I'd say that I really don't understand why he got buffed, because he was already so strong. I don't think that he was as strong in solo queue, just because people couldn't really carry as hard by themselves, but he was definitely a very strong pick due to his map presence with his ultimate. And Sejuani gets taken out because she has long range engage and she's a hyper tank. Rakan taken out in the first ban phase because very, very, very good playmaker support. Who fits in the meta extremely well. Fits in the meta, like, in this meta, a little bit better than Thresh does, even though Thresh is still viable. And then Jace is just a standard top lane menace pick that Huni would be probably expected to play. Syndra and Talia were banned out by Samsung Galaxy. They don't want Faker on anything that he's very, very comfortable on. Of course, Faker is generally comfortable on most champions, but Talia can force too many towers with her ultimate and force people off neutral objectives. And Syndra is can function as an assassin with their ultimate. SKT go ahead and leave. Their last ban was Shen to deny the map presence from Samsung Galaxy. So as long as they're able to deny the map presence, they can stand a chance. They go ahead and they lock in Gnar for Huni. This pick was a little weird for me because Kennen was on the table, and they knew Kennen was like a strong counter pick, especially in this meta, like in patch 7.18. Kennen was absolutely ridiculous because this was when his W actually had a 0.4, let's see, 0.4, 0.5, 0.6, 0.7, 0.8. That was depending on the level, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And this was bonus AD on his, it's like every 4th auto. It just does that extra damage. So Kennen's actually like mega, mega, mega strong. They actually nerfed Kennen to where it actually buffed his early game a little bit because it made it 0.6 bonus AD at all ranks. And that's kind of what threw Kennen out of like favor. But he's in this patch, he's very, very strong because of that, and he has more range than Gnar, and Gnar is not really able to duel him unless Gnar is tanky enough to ignore his damage, which is very, very difficult to it's very difficult to build around Kennen and still remain potent building against the rest of their team, because since he's going to provide a lot of physical damage here, he actually provides a lot of magic damage because his base damages are pretty high. Samsung Galaxy go ahead and they're going to lock in that Zac for the first game, which is, again, still very, very strong in this patch, even though he's kind of out of favor now. And Zac has that 2200 range on his E at level 5. So he's definitely good in the early game because his E has lots of range anyway for those early ganks, but especially around level 9, Zac gets to this like potent level where he can use this 2200 range to catch people out when he's not in vision range. So it's a really, really good, strong mid-game pick. So you see mid-game focus, late game focus. Well, primary split pusher. So it's not really focused on any stage of the game, but it's very important that they have that. And then they have hyper carry, and then they have dedicated support. Here, mid, primary split pusher, and then they have this is just a regular AD. I don't call Varus primary carry because he lacks the mobility and the damage on the range compared to other EDs. But this is definitely another dedicated support. Then you see Cassiopeia as kind of like a primary carry just because she has actually so much damage. One of the higher DPSs in the game, if not the highest, still. But definitely used to be. Putting her up there next to a couple champions that are really high DPS in the meta right now, like Kog'Maw. It's very difficult to tell. I'd have to run the numbers. Then they have Gragas for early game, and he's pretty good at mid too. Actually, Gragas really is just good all game. He's like a jack of all trades. Because once he gets tanky enough, he actually does provide quite a bit of damage from his W. But that early game focus is definitely probably his best quality with his flash E. And then they have a team fight bruiser. So that's just a simple breakdown. Let's go into a more detailed breakdown of how these team comps are supposed to function. So I'm just gonna draw a couple lines here. Oh, that last one didn't go too well. Okay, so in the top lane, Kennen is gonna beat Gnar. That's just a fact. There's nothing to really say about whether or not Huni can play the matchup really well. Because as long as Cuvée plays correctly, he can be up like 15 CS by the 10-minute mark. So that's about 300 gold. So he's going to be slowly being ahead as long as the game stays slow, which I would expect, since this is going to be a really insane series between two very old and strong Korean teams with very good coaching staff. I'll skip jungle. I'll talk about jungle later. In the mid lane, Cassiopeia actually has she has moments where she can beat Malzahar, but Malzahar generally pushes in the lane. So rather than saying Malz is greater than Cassiopeia, I'm gonna put Malz pushes Cassiopeia, and there actually may not be a CS disparity, but Cassiopeia in this matchup has to really search and find opportunities to burst Malzahar as fast as possible. That way she can snowball and reach power spike faster and go towards her late game faster, since her late game DPS is actually insane. Then in the bot lane, alright, I have to make two clauses here because it's actually really important for the laning phase. So from level 1 to level 4, yeah, it's about, no, it's a little more than that. It depends. Maybe level 1 to level 6, because it's after the first back, assuming the first back is clean. Varus Lulu is going to be greater than Chaya and Janna. Because Lulu provides really great poke, and Varus actually has really good damage in the early game, just because he has 2 damaging spells that are skill shots, which means they're generally higher damage than normal spells, and he has his W, which allows him to get a lot of magic damage off, and Lulu is just known for her glitter lance and her point and click shield, which can also be point and click damage. And she is polymorph, so Chaya can't really aggress onto Lulu or onto Bang because she'll just get polymorphed and take a lot of damage. So after level 6, so like level 6 to level 9 or maybe even a level 11, Chaya, Gianna is going to be greater than Varus Lulu. Because once Gianna gets about, once she gets about 3 to 4 points in E, she's going to be extremely strong in aiding the AD carry and actually be giving Xayah maybe like 2,000 gold in stats, because she's going to be giving Xayah like 50 AD plus. So depending on what she has and like if she's finishing Ardent Sensor, she can give Xayah so many stats that Xayah can basically function as a hyper carry long before Xayah actually reaches her hyper carry status. And Janna's particularly hard to kill herself just because she has so much self-peel. So the lane will naturally go against the Varus and Lulu after the early game. So what does this mean? It means that it means that SKT essentially have 3 lanes that are going to be losing. Which is really, really, really bad. Because it makes it incredibly difficult to scale up to the point where you want to. Because don't get me wrong, SKT at 6 items, they could find a way to beat Samsung at 6 items. It wouldn't be impossible, but it would be incredibly difficult, and that would be a question of execution. But we definitely know that SKT is capable of very incredible execution. However, if Samsung Gaming realize this, they're going to win the bottom lane, and the mid lane's always going to be pushed, and top lane's always going to be pushed, because Kennen can starve the Gnar while he's not pushing, and while he's pushing, he can get tower damage. So you're gonna see all 3 outer towers of SKT actually go down very quickly compared to normal. And what that does is it gives about 2,700 gold, about a 3,000 gold lead. And with that 3,000 gold lead, Samsung Gaming, as long as they play correctly and they stay with that gold lead, they can win the game just by not making mistakes. Which is really bad for SKT because it means that SKT have to play abnormally high risk. That way they can get higher rewards. And if they can get good rewards, they can actually counteract this natural phenomenon that's happening in this game, where they can just push all 3 lanes with a 1-3-1. And SK Telecom is not running a 1-3-1, they're running a 1-4. So it's really, really bad, because 1-3-1 is greater than 1-4. And the only thing greater than 1-3-1 is 5-0, and they can't 5-0 unless they're even in gold or higher. Because they certainly can't 5-0 when they're down 3,000 gold. That would be incredible. Not with this team comp though, because they're not running a control mage mid, so they don't actually have control over any zoning. They don't have a lot of zoning. The only thing that they have is Gragas Barrel, and that would have to be perfect execution. Anyway, as for the jungle matchup actually makes this a little bit easier for SKT, because Zach can technically gank all 3 lanes. He can gank Kennen in the early game. He can gank bot lane after about level 4. And he can gank the mid lane after level 6. And with all 3 of those, he can find success very easily. especially in the mid lane and the top lane, because Kennen can really run onto enemies and force onto enemies, and has CC, and Malzahar has his point and click ultimate after level 6. And even though bot lane doesn't have particularly good engage and force, after level 6 they will, just because they'll have so much damage on the Chaya coming from the Janna. In response to that, you see the Gragas, and in this patch, Zac was, Gragas is actually like a counter to Zac. It's not necessarily shutting down Zac, but you can deny a lot of Zac's ganks because Gragas E has priority over Zac E. So you can actually stop Zac midair, and catch him off guard. So there's a lot that you can do with that, and because Peanut actually has a lot of early game pressure with Flash E, remember, it counteracts the fact that Zac actually has to get to level 5 before his ganks are super potent, because his E will be level 3 at level 5, so he has to get all the way to level 5 before his E gets anywhere near that 2200 range that he normally has. But anyway, with everything that's on the screen right now, you can pretty much come to believe that if Samsung can get all 3 towers on the outside, and keep pressuring SKT, and get any kind of dragons that lead them to any more gold than that 3,000 gold, like they can get about a 4,000 gold lead. If they can increase that to 4,000, they can win the game very easily. So this is a very bad, it looks very bad in theory for SKT, and I was actually thinking that when I was watching it last night. I was like, wow, SKT doesn't really have a win condition that they want to search for, except for this like mid-game picks where it relies on Samsung having poor vision, and I know that Samsung is actually a very, very sturdy team with very heavy vision control, and SKT is actually one of the Korean seeds with the least vision control. So SKT really not playing towards the enemy's weaknesses, and because they're not playing for the enemy's weaknesses, they cannot do a whole lot. But alright, let's take a look at the game and see if SKT had any specific opportunities, and if we can find those opportunities, then maybe we can get some insight on how Samsung either could have been beaten, or how Samsung, or if we don't, then maybe Samsung truly is one of the best teams that we've ever seen in Worlds. Anyway, standard starts. Doran Shield coming out, because Doran Shield's still pretty strong here. Talisman coming out for both junglers, not surprising. And coins coming out from both the supports. And we're not seeing any Targons from the from the ADCs for the supports, because it's not necessarily it doesn't need to be done, because they're not like super reliant on the Ardent sensor. It would be not a horrible idea for Chaya to get Targons, just because once Janna gets Ardent, she becomes this like mini hyper carry in the early game, and it wouldn't hurt Xayah all that much, but it would mean that she has a little bit less stats like for last hitting, whereas usually they get the Doran Shield because it's very good for last hitting, and it has bonus trading damage. Is there any interesting masteries coming out? Deathfire Touch is standard on Malzahar. Colossus is standard on Zac. Fervor is standard on AD Kennen, Bloodlust, and Windspeakers. This is nothing that we're not expecting. Thunderlord's on Lulu, so Lulu's actually going to be trying to play for this early game. And really like poke on the enemy bot lane and try to abuse them back and maybe get a CS lead for Varus. Faker is running Storm Raider Surge, so he's going to be playing extremely aggressive because as long as he can proc Storm Raider Surge, he can actually kill people 1v1 very easily. Then we see Huni is actually running Bloodlust. I don't know if that's a glitch or if this was intended. So I don't remember Bloodlust being the thing to go on Gnar. I'll just leave that note in the corner. Jeez, sorry. Is there anything else to speculate on? No. Crown's being engaged on by Faker. Faker's going to be taking a lot of damage here. Faker playing extremely aggressive this game. With that Storm Raider Surge, he's definitely looking for an opportunity, and he was trying to force an opportunity with Gragas. Because as long as Gragas can get in a flash E range, they can actually kill Crown in basically one hit. And it makes it much easier. Zac comes into the mid lane. Peanut goes ahead and dodges out with his E. And Faker goes ahead and he drops heal out. So Faker's now down heal. Which means he's actually even in dueling potential with Malzahar, just because he doesn't have a defensive spell, and Malzahar has teleport, which means he just doesn't have a defensive spell or an aggressive spell. Anyway, Cassiopeia backs early. She gets her tier. That's pretty necessary, especially in this patch, because once Cassiopeia gets Seraph's Embrace, she can really pop off. As long as she's not too far behind. So SKT pushing in bot pretty heavily, 42 to 27 plus 4. You see a plus 8 or 10 CS lead for Bang, which is actually really crazy. That's definitely coming from the Lulu. The Lulu is definitely causing that with the Thunderlords and providing Bang with his E so that he's actually able to get mega damage on Ruler and Core JJ, because Lulu passive plus Varus W is actually it stacks up on Varus's auto attacks, which probably already do 70 damage. And Varus's auto attacks then start to do like maybe 120 damage, and you're only like 5 minutes in the game. So it's definitely a lot of pressure that most bot lanes are not capable of dealing with. Ambition spotted out. Faker playing under tower here, but he's definitely up a little bit of CS. It looks like he's up 6. Which, don't get me wrong, 6 is a very good CS lead. 6 actually is 2 control wards. Or just about 2 control wards worth of gold. So Bang has to lose flash on a visit that Ambition made to bottom lane. So now we see that Ambition has actually caused more pressure than Peanut has, and Peanut really needs to step it up and really like deny some vision. You see that Peanut actually did opt for an early scanner. This is really smart because he wants to be able to deny the vision. That way he can go back and take ganks and cause pressure while he's still potent. Um, but he has not been doing that. So if Peanut really doesn't step it up, then SKT really had no chance to win this game. He's got to really look for an opportunity. And maybe it's not just up to Peanut. Maybe Faker or Huni or Bang and Wolf need to create an opportunity in which Peanut can be potent and really control the situation. But now that Peanut's level 6, like they don't have too much time before Zach is going to be outscaling Peanut and being more useful. And be able to duel even when Peanut's there in lanes. Like per se, if Ambition ganks bottom lane and Peanut ganks bottom lane, they're going to lose the 3v3, especially around that level 9 mark. Because you're going to see level 5 E from Gianna, and you're going to see because of level 5 E and Ardent Sensor, you're going to see Chaya is going to be really strong. And then you're going to see level 5 E from Zac, which is extreme range, and a lot of people can get caught out pretty easily without expecting that. Anyway, let's talk about the top lane for a minute. It seems like Huni's actually not down that much. He's missing a couple CS here, or just one. This needs to go away. I need to count these minions. We don't actually know how far Huni is behind, but he's playing very patiently. And he's definitely playing for his CS. So it's very impressive. Alright, so Huni's actually down 17 CS. So this is actually really, really bad for Huni. That means he's down about 340 gold. We can't determine exactly. It could be it's like 340 plus or minus 50. Depending on like cannon minions or how many melees or ranged he missed. But it's a strong lead for Kennen. And since Kennen already wins the game, already wins the lane, Huni can't really afford to get too behind, or he can't really do anything. But Huni can't really get all the CS in the lane for free because Cuve can already duel him and force onto him. So this was kind of expected, this dragon here. Core JJ is level 6 now, which means they're perfectly fine for looking for skirmishes in the jungle. So they go ahead and they rotate Malzahar onto the dragon, and Malzahar is really good for taking neutral objective because of his voidlings. And his voidlings and his dot damage can actually kill neutral objectives fairly easily. And this is a very good move by Samsung Gaming. As soon as they have the opportunity to go ahead and take dragon, they go ahead and they try and force it. And because of they're ahead a little bit already, they can go ahead and they're not ahead, but their picks allow for them to be ahead. Janna gives a large amount of gold value in stats because of her healing, and her shield, and her bonus AD. That you can't really get from a champion like Lulu. You definitely get some healing and shielding, but it's not going to be as much as Janna, not nearly, because Janna actually has wind speakers and Lulu has Thunderlords. So Lulu is going to be not nearly as potent as Janna, and Lulu can't really provide the bonus AD that Janna provides. So fights are going to be particularly high risk for SKT. SKT go ahead and say, alright, we see your stone dragon, we're just going to let you have it. They do have vision on it. but they can't really do anything about it because, as I said, remember Malzahar can just push mid lane, QV pushes top lane, and now that Core JJ and Ruler have gotten their first back and they have a BF sword, and she's got level 3E, or Janna has level 3E, then they can just push the lane. So you see that that 3-lane push 1-3, or well, not yet 1-3-1, but could function as a 1-3-1. It doesn't really matter where they put each individual champion. They could actually make rotations even after this dragon, and it would be valid just because they can catch SKT off guard, and they can actually win the game even faster. But what are they doing that is giving up something? Wow. Crown's got mega prediction skills. So the CS lead in the top lane is actually getting pretty large now, which means Gnar, after the next back, is going to start to be not nearly as strong as QV. You see now he's trading with QV, and QV gets quite a bit of damage on him, but Huni was able to trade back a decent amount. That's not going to happen in future fights after the next back. I know that they're both holding a lot of gold because they've both been here. Yeah, QV's holding 1,500 and Nara's holding 1,000. After the next back, they're probably done, and Huni's just going to lose the lane naturally. And when Huni loses the lane naturally, he's gonna lose this tower. If they lose that top tower, they're gonna start to slowly lose the game very quickly. It's actually really unfortunate that SKT is already starting to whittle down. You see their bot tower is about to go because of the natural power that Chaya and Janna have, and their top lane tower is going to go down soon. And Faker's always pushed in, so his tower is also down. So you see that SKT doesn't really have any damage on towers from their side, but they do have they're taking a lot of tower damage on their side, and this is just natural, and really Peanut should be doing something about it. Peanut's job this game is to delay and stall the enemy from abusing their natural lane matchups. The only thing that's really difficult about this is if Peanut goes ahead and he ganks top lane, even at this point or even before this point, it's possible that after level 6, Kennen can pull off a 1v2. He actually has that potential. And if Zac is to come in, meaning that if Peanut doesn't know that Zac is on the bottom side of the map, then Zac could be on the top side of the map. And if there's a 2v2, where it's Huni and Peanut versus QV and Ambition, Huni and Peanut naturally lose that. Bang went ahead and engaged on the Ruler there. Ruler doesn't have his ultimate now, so Ruler's going to be weak for maybe 2 minutes. But Samsung don't flinch. They're just going to keep on pushing. They actually send Malzahar bot, and they actually set up this 1-3-1 that they've been planning to do, which is really strong because Malzahar can't really be 1v1'd, and Kennen can almost 1v2, so there's actually so much pressure on the map that if they send 3 elsewhere, so 3 in the mid lane, the 3 in the mid lane has to be 3v2. So SKT actually has 0 options. So mid lane tower is half down, and they go ahead and they push it heavily, and they use Rift Herald to go ahead and secure it. There's actually not a very effective use of Rift Herald, because A, Rift Herald can do about 2 times that amount of damage, and B, if they're not going to push with this Rift Herald, then the rest of this Rift Herald's health is not as useful, because as you see them back off, you're going to see SKT go ahead and kill the Rift Herald, and the Rift Herald may not even hit the inner tower. So that was definitely not immediately effective, or not the best play. If they got Rift Herald to hit the inner tower, then it would have been a fine play. It would have been a little bit risky to do that because 5 people could, say, roam down into the mid lane and engage on them. But as long as they kept Gnar in the top lane, if Gnar left top lane, Cuvée actually takes top lane tower. So what would happen is if they take about half HP off of the SKT mid tower, and if Gnar roams down, then they get top tower for free. And Malzahar keeps pushing bot anyway. So there's actually nothing SKT can do without losing anything. So SKT at this point should be considering medium risk situations. This way they can get better rewards and close the gold gap. So Samsung go ahead and they pick up a second stone dragon, and they notice that a third stone dragon is spawning. This is actually really bad for SKT, because now that they have 2 stone dragons, they get 20% bonus damage to towers. And to Baron. Which means that they can actually so their goal is to win the game before 6 items. And their win condition is actually the 1-3-1, where they push all lanes at the same time. And trying to put pressure on all turrets. Which means they're always trying to hit turrets, and this 2 mountain dragon is actually very, 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 very strong. And if they were to get Baron, they basically win the game immediately. So it really doesn't seem like SKT has any like good opportunities this game. As I said, like Gragas could have ganked bottom in the really early game. Gragas tried to put pressure on Crown, but Gragas can't really put pressure in the top lane because they can't win the 2v2. Even now he's hovering, but it means nothing. Cuvé's not afraid of Gragas. He's perfectly ready to engage in a 1v2 and peel his own way out of it. and he's backing now, so he's going to be even stronger. So you're seeing Samsung go ahead and they rotate the bot lane up into the top lane. And this is just natural. Understand that they're putting two people in the top lane, which is a ranged AD carry and a Janna, who is a dedicated support for the AD carry, who actually gives the AD carry damage. And they're going to go ahead and put all that damage on the enemy mid lane top tower. And now Kenning goes into the bottom lane. And what this does is it actually sets up for Baron. Because it forces Huni into the bottom lane. And then Kennen and Huni are both ready to teleport to Baron. And if they force this teleport play and a Baron is not taken, they can actually send Malzahar bot and then Kennen mid, and then keep Chaya and Janna top. And the next time that they roam towards Baron, Malzahar can teleport to Baron, but whoever was protecting against Malzahar, whoever was protecting the bottom lane where you put Malzahar, is not going to have a teleport. So you're going to see a 5v4 in the favor of Samsung Gaming at Baron at about like 23-minute mark. Or you're going to see Samsung run on the Baron at the 20-minute mark. And it's going to be, it'll be pretty much free. I don't think it is, but that shouldn't happen. I'd also like to note that Cassiopeia actually went for an early Quicksilver Sash, which delays her power spikes a lot. Like, she only has one item, she has the Rat of Ages, and that's going to take a little while to scale up. I don't know how many stacks it has right now, I couldn't tell you. But that really needs to be 10 stacks before Cassiopeia's going to be as useful as she needs to be. SKT's not really making like proper rotations right now. So let's in the perspective of SKT, they actually have two in the middle lane pushing heavily, and then they have two in the bottom lane pushing heavily, and they're trying to get this bottom lane turret. But in this situation, they're actually losing the top lane outer turret, which is which makes the win condition of Samsung a lot easier. When you note, there are 3 towers, like of all the same rank. It becomes incredibly hard to break one of them. But once one of them is broken, you can actually view the map as a different shape. And because the different shape is there, you can actually get minions further and get pressure on the following tower, a higher tier tower. And then because someone has to respond to that higher tier tower, you put pressure in the other 2 lanes. But what SKT is thinking here is, if we take this tower and they take a tower, then we trade about like 800 gold for 800 gold. And when they do this, it accelerates the game, which means they will actually reach 6 items faster. When SKT loses this tower, though, they lose complete control of the topside jungle. So they actually have like no control over Baron once they lose this tower, which is really unfortunate for SKT and very, very fortunate for Samsung. So SKT's win condition is really about like trying to get picks and catch people out. But if you notice along the board for most of the game, Samsung Gaming plays around areas where they have a lot of vision control. I'm gonna mark every point on the map where Samsung have a ward in the top side jungle, just because that's where they've been playing. They haven't sent their team anywhere else, um, except for when QV was bottom lane, and even then he wasn't playing forward. So they were only playing within their grounds, the grounds that they set. Um, and because they're only within those grounds, SKT actually has zero opportunities to get a pick. And because Samsung plays so safe, they're always going to have sums. And because they always have sums, it actually becomes impossible for SKT to kill them on the first time that they pick them. Because in order to get a pick out of someone, you actually have to take away their flash, and then you have to get them a second time and kill them. And that's incredibly difficult, especially against a Gianna and a Chaya. You do see a strong CS lead in the favor of Cassiopeia, but remember that those 30 minions are actually all going into that Quicksilver Sash. Quicksilver Sash is about 1,300 gold, and those 30 minions give Faker about 600. So he's actually behind in terms of actually building items. He just now picked up Moral Anomicon. And that behind is not 100% behind because Cassiopeia doesn't build boots at all. And Malzahar had to build these 1,200 gold boots. But Cassiopeia is not where she could be, where she could be very far ahead. And snowballing out of control, which is where Faker wanted to be in the game by this point. But he's definitely not. And you see that 3,000 gold lead that I was talking about in favor of SKT, and that's just natural. That happened because of the team comps. As long as Samsung Gaming played correctly, they could actually form that gold lead uncontested. And you can see that it's uncontested, as SKT have not even attempted to contest it. And I agree with them that the only thing that they could have done better this game is having Peanut play more towards the bottom lane, so the bottom lane tower didn't get taken down really easily. And maybe even Huni increasing his... he played, don't get me wrong, he played the lane very well. He's not down that far. He could be down way farther. But if he did play the game better, he wouldn't be so far behind, and SKT wouldn't be in this spot where they actually... They don't have a say in whether or not they win the game. Peanut's gonna go for a Baron steal here. It's actually pretty incredible, but it's also pretty sad. That Baron steal should have never happened. You saw a smite come out from Zac. I don't really know what his smite was, but let's go ahead and look at an extreme breakdown of this. So, Gragas was... he was being suppressed by Malzahar, which is a 2.5 second suppression. And during that 2.5 seconds, Zac decided to smite Baron, but no one else was actually hitting Baron. Or, well, they didn't hit Baron immediately. Which means Gragas was actually able to, once the 2.5 seconds ended, and it's actually not 2.5 seconds, he has Merc Treads, so it's more like 1.8 seconds. So once that time period ended, he was able to smite Baron, and then he did. So definitely not seen by Samsung Gaming. Because Zac definitely had to smite early, don't get me wrong. Or, well, actually, hold on. No. Gragas got level 12 when he got Baron, so it was a 50-50 smite. As long as Zac was not... As long as Gragas was not suppressed. And I think that Samsung may have not have realized that Gragas had Merc Treads. And if they... And that may be the mistake that Samsung made here. But let's go ahead and talk about like what SKT does after that, because now that they got Baron, they didn't decide to back off, because at this point I would have just backed off. Um, I don't think that there's like a way that SKT could very favorably win this team fight, especially with Huni teleporting in and he's not Mega Gnar. That's actually, if he was Mega Gnar, let's suppose for a minute Huni was Mega Gnar right now. Huni is Mega Gnar. He jumps here. He uses ult into the wall here, and then Faker uses ult, and Bang is able to get a Q through there as well. So you actually see a very good progression of dominance that SKT could have done. But Huni's actually got no bar of Gnar, Mega Gnar. So because he's mini Gnar, he actually doesn't have any like CC or anything. So SKT actually just pincer themselves. And because Kennen started rotating up more quickly, which SKT did not think about, because usually when you think Kennen, you think dedicated split pusher. So Kennen roaming up was actually a fishing tactic by Samsung Gaming, where they thought that SKT may want to fight over the Baron, because in theory, if SKT take the Baron, or if SKT lose Baron, they lose the game immediately. Because the enemy has an effective 1-3-1. And if you run a 1-3-1 and you get Baron, you win. That's just generally, or you want a successful 1v1, meaning your top laner can duel the enemy top laner, your mid laner can duel the enemy mid laner, and the three at least have pressure in the mid lane, even if they don't necessarily beat the other 3v3, or the other three members of SKT. So because both the one lanes, the side lanes in the 1-3-1 are ranged, they have that much extra power in taking down turrets. So it was definitely a very beautiful team comp by Samsung Gaming. And SKT had realized that they made a mistake. They overcommitted when they really should have backed off, because let's suppose for a minute that Gragas smites this and he flashes out of the pit. If he flashes out of the pit, you actually notice that anyone who follows him out of the pit gets put into this tiny zone. And because they're in this tiny zone, Faker's here, Varus is here, and Gragas is right on top of them, and they can't actually do anything. So SKT would essentially gain Baron, which remember is a 3.5 minute buff, and it would also give them 1,500 gold. So it would actually change the gold lead to what is it? Here, well, we can actually see it. They're at 3,900, or yeah, 39,000 versus 40,000, or 40,400. So that's actually a really manageable gold lead, and with SKT scaling picks like Cassiopeia and Gnar, they would actually have a lot more pressure. But they didn't decide to back and get items, and let's take a look if they're waiting on key power spikes. If you look at Zaya's build, she has actually 2 items finished, so she's actually at a key power spike, but Varus does not have 2 items finished. Gragas does not have Knight's Vow yet, which means either Cassiopeia or Varus, whoever they decide to put Knight's Vow on, is not going to be as strong and not as tanky. Whereas Zac actually does have a second item finished on top of his jungle item. It's Adaptive Helm, and Adaptive Helm actually like really protects him from all the spells on SKT really, but mainly Cassiopeia. Cassiopeia can't really burst him down. So because SKT haven't really hit these key power spikes, it's not necessarily a good idea for them to fight. It would be a better idea for them to just take the free Baron, And with that free Baron, they would actually had a much better chance of winning, because then they can go ahead and they can set up a 1-4 or a 1-3-1, just because Kennen and Crown can't push against Baron minions. Just because the Baron minions just get really tanky and they do a lot of damage, and because and Baron actually lasts 3.5 minutes, so with those 3.5 minutes, it would actually get to the 27-minute mark, and SKT would be in a much more comfortable position where they'd actually also be almost even in gold. And because Samsung only have mountain dragons, they don't actually have any extra fighting stats. But when SKT loses the Baron, or at least loses the Baron buffs, they didn't lose the Baron, they're not able to stop Samsung from pushing. Because even, see this now, Gnar goes into the mid lane, but Samsung is not really going to care about just Gnar, because the rest of SKT is on cooldown, or they're going to be respawning, and Samsung can actually force this mid tower, and they can force the bot tower. And what happens if they can force the mid tower and the bot tower? They effectively negate the gold lead, or negate the gold SKT gained from stealing Baron. Okay, so we're actually getting towards like the end of the game now, because now you see that 4,000 gold lead that I was talking about, in the favor of Samsung, and they also have 3 stone dragons. So when they touch towers, the towers actually just disappear. And if there is to be another Baron in this game, then they can get it really quickly and almost for free. Or well, they should be able to get it for free because there's a 4,000 gold lead. SKT can't really contest that. So Gnar is pushing top lane with his Baron minions, but that's not really going to do anything. Samsung just go ahead and they set up their 1-3-1, and they're really aimed at that mid tower and that bot tower. So Gnar's Baron is now gone, so you're going to see Kennen actually start to push back towards the Gnar. He actually just backed and got his 3rd item. He got Furs and Mallet. And you can see that he's actually half of an item ahead of Huni, because he's got 2 kills, so he's got about 900, 1,050. He's got about 1,350 gold lead. Or at least overall 1,350 or so, which means he's very strong compared to Huni, and that's not counting any local gold that he got from towers, or any gold that actually he gets from towers in general. So he might be all the way up to 2,000 ahead of Huni, just because he has all the gold on him. Faker really looking for an opportunity to try and kill Crown, because if Faker hits his ultimate, now that he has Seraph's Embrace, he can actually kill Crown 1v1, but it requires him to really hit his ultimate, because if he doesn't hit his ultimate, then Crown won't be stunned, and Crown can just flash away, or Crown can die, or Crown can kill him if Crown gets his full setup, his EQWR. or really his EWQR, because you Q and then you R to hold them in place for your Q. So Samsung Gaming's playing very patiently. They're actually almost 5,000 gold ahead now just from natural resources because they've been taking the enemy jungle. And this is just something that happens when SKT loses control of a part of the jungle because they have no towers. So Samsung's lead will just continue to rise until SKT chooses to do something. I think SKT realizes this, and they decide that the next Baron is going to be when they're going to try and contest it. Baron is up now at the 30-minute mark, and Cuve's in the bottom lane along with Huni being matched. And wow, hold on. They take them 15 seconds to do that Baron. Peanut didn't even know that they started Baron, or they placed a blue ward on it and they saw it. But that was triple Mountain Dragon Baron with a hyper carry and a Malzahar. So Samsung really just got the Baron for free, and SKT really wasn't given an option to try and contest it. And if they were going to try and contest it, it would have been extremely high risk. But really, honestly, I think that SKT should have tried to contest the Baron, because if they were to get the Baron again, they can continue to stall. But now that they have lost a Baron, they're just going to naturally lose the game. And we're probably going to see that here over the next few minutes. I don't really remember. I think they just end up losing all the towers that they have, just because it's a 1-3-1. Like, you can't just constantly jump in between lanes and be able to protect all of the lanes from Baron minions. It's not exactly easy. So with the Baron buff, they got mid lane inhibitor. They're going to get bot lane tower. Wow, lots of damage coming out from Kive. He's even got the Lord Dominic's, or that might just be regular Last Whisper. I think that's Dominic's. But SKT tried to get a play onto him, and because he's so strong, it actually would have been better to do a play like that earlier than now, just because you might have had a better chance of killing him before he gets to this point. Even look at him take this. This is with 3 mountain dragons, but like, he melts the dragon by himself. That was like, what, 8-second dragon? Incredible. So SKT's base is now left in shambles, and the gold lead is 10,000. And the gold lead is going to stop meaning a whole lot soon because people are going to start hitting full build. But if Samsung can end the game before SKT gets those last items, then SKT can't do anything. Because look, Cassiopeia has a whole nother item to build next to her QSS, and so does Varus, because he still has the Doran shield. But you see Xayah full build, just waiting on her 5th item, and you see Malzahar probably holding control wards rather than having a 5th item. Zach's almost at 4 items, and Gragas has not finished his 3rd. There's really just nothing SKT can do to contest at this point. So what SKT really needed to do is Peanut plays higher risk earlier in the game. It's actually really sad because normally, if you run a late game team fight team comp, you say, well, we don't need to run high risk because as long as we don't lose anything, we'll just end up winning in the late game. But this is not a game where you can win in the late game if you never make it there just naturally. Faker really trying to make a play there, but really making that play just ends the game faster. He probably accepted at that point that if he didn't get magic kills, he was just going to die, or he was just going to lose anyway. So he tried his best, but it's way too late. So overall, SKT really didn't have an opportunity to win this game, and inside the game, you may be able to blame Peanut, just because he wasn't really able to do anything he was supposed to do. But then again, you also have to put a little bit of blame on Hooney, just because his lane crumbled. But if Peanut was able to put pressure in bot lane or find success in the mid lane, then he would have been much more successful. I actually want to go back and look at something. I think there was a gank in the mid lane. I don't actually remember when it was. It's at some point that Faker has, like, no health. Oh. Yeah, Peanut. This gank was really sad because Peanut walked right through a ward, which actually made it impossible for this gank to be successful. And Peanut really had no idea that they had a defensive ward there. Because had that not been warded, Malzahar may not have gone upwards. And if Malzahar didn't go up, then Peanut actually might have been able to find Flash E. So this early game gank would have actually been so much more successful. You would have seen Malzahar run upwards. You just would have seen him run upwards much later. And by much later, I mean like once Peanut is in vision. Other than Peanut and other than Hooney, if there's anything SKT really couldn't pull off this game, it's the draft. Because you can't draft 3 lanes that are going to get pushed in. It's just very difficult for all 3 of those lanes to actually do anything if they're just gonna naturally get pushed in, especially if you're gonna run like a mid game comp with Varus. You want somebody who can combo off of Varus, so you probably want someone who did well in the early game. So if they did well in the early game, then you can actually run around with Varus, and have control over Dragon and Rift Herald. Okay, that's all for game 1. I'm going to be splitting this into a couple videos, but thanks for watching, and seeing if you